Hello everyone, this is what seems to be a pretty popular buggy. From what I can tell, it is the WL Toys 124017, but I don't actually see a brand name on the packaging or the buggy itself. It does have some nice words like powerful and fierce, so hopefully it is those things. It does look an awful lot like another buggy I have, so I might have to do a comparison there, but the plan is to test it out on 2 different tracks and do some bashing. Should be a lot of fun, but first, let's take a closer look. One of the first things I noticed about this buggy is that it is very bouncy. It feels like there is no, or maybe just very light, oil in the shocks. Maybe the springs are a little on the stiff side, but either way, I'm going to do some laps with it as is, and then I'm going to take them apart and see if they need some oil. For now, I'm going to back the preload off on the shocks to hopefully get the ride height down a little bit, because right now, even with the battery in it, it sits all the way at the top. The body comes off with 2 pins here, and it feels a little better than I expected. Some of these get really flimsy and weak and crack very easily. We will see how this one holds up. Being a buggy, it is less prone to impact, so that should help. The wing, on the other hand, I am pretty worried about damaging pretty quickly because it is similar material and it is a lot more prone to impacts and damage. So I don't think it will handle a lot of crashes, especially if it's cold, but we'll see how it holds up. Looking at the chassis and electronics layout, it looks very similar to the LC Racing / Tecon buggies, and that's a good thing because I really like those. I also see that it has a blue motor mount, which I believe means this is the V2. The discs feel very light, like there is little to no oil in them, but I'm not going to tune that in this video, so hopefully it handles well enough. Well, there are a few more things to cover, like how much aluminum is on this buggy, but I really want to get on the track, so I'll talk about those later. Okay, I have a few laps in, and this is a wild little thing. It has a lot of power, and the power delivery is pretty challenging. It wants to go what feels like almost full throttle right away as soon as you get on the gas at all. Just wants to rip. Can't even give it quarter throttle on this track, really. And being so dry and dusty makes it tough to get traction. Super light diffs probably don't help either. A little too high of ride height, again, all makes it more challenging to find grip, so it's pretty easy to spin out around the corners, and it's also hard to give it the right amount of throttle for the jumps. It has plenty of power, it's just about controlling it. I did try to calibrate the SC, but there's no button on the SC and couldn't find a way to do it, so I might have to look into doing that. Just feels like it's not calibrated quite perfectly and could be a lot smoother, a lot easier to drive if it was. Or maybe this is how it's supposed to be, but it's challenging for sure. Has a lot of potential though. The shocks actually feel like they're coming around on their own as well. I checked them after a few laps and they felt better than they did out of the box, but I can grease the wedge, as they call it. Oh, right off the track, but going for that triple, we call it greasing the wedge, and this thing has plenty of power to do that. If I go a little wide here, oh, I could actually probably quad that if I go wide enough, so see if I can come around and get the quad. I just wanted to get a decent lap in to see what the lap time was before I check out the shocks and see if working on them improves that. But the bigger problem right now is definitely the power delivery. 13.41 as my best so far. Not so impressive. I don't know how well this will show up, but show you how little I'm gassing it to get around this track, and it's going too fast even with such little throttle. I'm basically just using first quarter, if that, of the trigger, and that's plenty. Well, I went ahead and put 20 weight oil in the shocks, and I was surprised to see that there was actually quite a bit of oil in them, maybe even a little too much, and maybe that is why it was so bouncy at first, and then it settled in as that shock oil broke down after a few laps. It doesn't feel a whole lot different now, maybe slightly less bouncy on the drop test, but we will see how it feels on the track. Well, the shocks felt a little better, but I decided to go to 35 weight to see if that improves it more. Still feel like the springs might be a little stiff, but making some small adjustments. The bigger adjustment that helped a lot more though is that there is a throttle trim adjustment knob on the radio, and it is not actually throttle trim. It is more of a throttle cut or throttle limiter, so it delays the power from hitting full power. It's a little finicky to try to get the perfect setup. It's still a little touchy when you want enough power to hit the bigger jumps, and it delays that initial takeoff a bit. So not perfect, but it is making it easier to drive. Now let's see if I can put down a faster lap than I did earlier. 12.21, so quite a bit of improvement there. Okay, now I'm on a much bigger track. This one was made for pro motos and 8 scales. Don't really ever drive any minis out here, but figure gotta test it out, right? See how it handles something a little bigger, a little more rough than the mini track. And first lap wasn't too bad, actually. Feel like I could definitely hit that jump all the way to the rough landing. Has plenty of speed for these jumps. And that is actually handling the rough sections better than expected for being a mini. Actually seems almost better than the mini track. So pretty sweet so far. I should probably mention that this car came from Temu. They reached out to me about my other channel that's more about bikes. And I said, well, what about an RC one for my RC channel instead? They were up for it, so I'll talk more about them later. For now, having quite a bit of fun driving this little car on this big track. Well, that was surprising and really fun. It definitely handled the big track better than I expected. It did have some bounce on some of the landings, but the downsides are not very steep, so that is to be expected, especially for a car this size, but it handled the rough sections better than I thought, so I'll definitely have to do some more because the battery did not last as long as I was hoping. I think the next step would be to slow down the differentials to get more consistent steering, but for now, I'm going to go bash it to see how durable it really is. All right, let's warm up the bashing with a little jump for a little car. I can go faster than that though. Bit of grass which slows it down a hair, but there's some more air. Whoops, I have to turn the throttle trim back to 100%. Oh yeah, it's ripping now. So much that I about missed it. It would be nice if this was a little bit wider of a ramp, but I figured I might as well go for the flip, and it pulls around. Wow. Try that again. Nope. Double flip, almost. Something happened in the front end. That was a pretty hard hit. There we are. Let's try it from a new view here, and I missed the ramp. It's quite hard to stay straight in the grass with the mini buggy. The ramp is also pretty skinny, but there's a huge flip for you. Rough landing too. Another one. Oh, it's just got a lot louder. How about a front flip? Oh, that was rough. Well, that crash ended that session, but the damage is actually not too bad. It pulled a screw out of the steering, popped a link, and bent the front drive shaft. The rear drive shaft is also very bent, but that was from the jump beforehand, and that was the noise it was making. I'm not too surprised on that damage since those were some hard hits, but there was some bend in the rear drive shafts before I started bashing, so I was pretty surprised to see that from just track running. But the wing held up, so that was surprising. I will be finding out if the parts from the LC Racing buggy will fit this. It looks very similar, so we'll see if it is an exact match for those drive shafts and maybe some other things. I did notice that this uses Phillips head screws, which was a bit of a negative to me. I definitely don't enjoy using those versus a hex head. I don't know how well this will hold up over time, but it seems like people have had pretty good luck with them, and if parts are interchangeable with other buggies, then at least you can upgrade it slowly to something of better quality. This seems to be a pretty popular size lately, and there are some other good options for a little more money, so I would definitely recommend considering one of those. But if the price is right, like it was for me, this can still be a lot of fun. It is about $110, and Temu actually has a lot of $100 coupon offers, so you can check out the link in the description below if you want to buy through them. This was my first time using Temu since I really don't know what to think about them. I've seen plenty of ads, but I've pretty much just ignored them until they offered to send me something for free. I had to take advantage of that. But one thing I did find interesting is that it showed up in this box with no extra packaging. There was a shipping label on it, and the seams were not even taped, so luckily nothing fell out, but I was expecting a little more protection for this package. I will say that the person I was dealing with for this collaboration was very responsive and nice, but that's about as far as my experience went, so I can't add much more there. I had a few dollars left over in the budget, so I picked a few things that should be good for RC use. This is an electronic digital caliper, then we have a razor blade tool with extendable blade and replacement blades, and then finally a plastic brush with a soap dispenser. Well, I think that covers everything. Thanks for watching.